There's a liquid that WWI field surgeons kept in every hospital kit from 1914 to 1918. It killed bacteria and fungi on contact. It broke down into water and oxygen within hours. It left no toxic residue. It cost almost nothing to produce. It saved thousands of lives in conditions where nothing else was available. The same liquid poured onto infected plant soil kills powdery mildew, root rot, botrytis, and damping off with the same mechanism. It costs $1 at any pharmacy. The $16 billion fungicide industry has been selling you the patented synthetic version of this compound since 1950. The original is still in the brown bottle in the first aid aisle. You have walked past it every time you went to pick up a prescription. You have used it on cuts. You have used it on scrapes. And every season your plants died from fungal disease while you spent $50 on a spray bottle that does the same thing. Subscribe and hit the bell. The year is 1914. Europe is at war. Millions of men are in trenches. The mud is infected. The wounds are deep. Surgeons in field hospitals have one problem above everything else. Not the bullets, not the shells. Infection. A soldier could survive a bullet wound and die 3 days later because bacteria got into the tissue. Gangrene spread faster than medicine could stop it. Before antibiotics existed. Before penicillin. Before anything modern. Surgeons needed something that killed everything biological on contact. Something cheap. Something that worked in a muddy tent with no electricity and no clean water. They used hydrogen peroxide. Not because it was fancy. Because it worked. Poured on a wound. Watch the white bubbles appear. Those bubbles are oxygen. The liquid is releasing oxygen on contact with the bacteria in the wound. The oxygen kills the bacteria. The liquid breaks down into plain water. Nothing harmful left behind. The wound stays clean. The soldier lives. By 1916, hydrogen peroxide was standard issue in Allied field hospitals across France and Belgium. It was cheap to produce. It was stable enough to survive transport on supply wagons. It required no refrigeration, no special training to use. Any medic could pour it on a wound and know it would work. The medical records from that period are clear. Wounds treated with hydrogen peroxide showed lower infection rates than wounds treated with other available antiseptics. The compound was not a last resort. It was the preferred solution. After the war ended in 1918, the knowledge traveled home with the soldiers and the surgeons. American households kept hydrogen peroxide in medicine cabinets. Farmers used it. Gardeners used it. It was understood as something that killed things it should not be there. Simple, reliable, cheap. The same thing happens when you pour it on your plants. Your plants get sick for one reason: fungi and bacteria. Powdery mildew is fungi. Root rot is fungi. Botrytis is fungi. Damping off is fungi killing your seedlings. Every disease you have ever watched destroy a plant was caused by a living organism growing where it should not grow. And hydrogen peroxide kills living organisms the same way it killed bacteria in WWI wounds. Same liquid, same mechanism, same result. $1. But here is something even simpler. Think about what the bubbles are. You pour hydrogen peroxide on a wound and you see bubbles. Your child sees it and asks why. The answer is, those bubbles are oxygen being released. The liquid is breaking apart. The extra oxygen atom is escaping. It kills the bacteria as it escapes. Then the liquid is just water. That is the entire science. Bubbles equal oxygen. Oxygen kills pathogens. Liquid becomes water. Nothing harmful stays. A 5-year-old can understand it. A $100 fungicide spray does the same job with more steps, more chemicals, more residue, and $49 more. So what is hydrogen peroxide? Simple enough for anyone to understand. Water is H2O, 2 hydrogen atoms, 1 oxygen atom. Hydrogen peroxide is H2O2, 2 hydrogen atoms, 2 oxygen atoms, 1 extra oxygen atom. That extra oxygen atom is unstable. It wants to escape. When the liquid touches something organic, bacteria, fungi, a cut on your skin, a diseased root, it releases that extra oxygen atom. The release is the bubbles you see. The oxygen kills the pathogen, then the liquid becomes plain water. Nothing left. No residue. No toxin. No chemical lingering in your soil. This is why WWI surgeons trusted it. Not because it was complicated, because it was simple. And simple things that work do not need a patent. That last sentence is important. We will come back to it. First, the plants. Powdery mildew. You have seen it. White powder on the leaves of your squash, your cucumbers, your roses. It looks like someone dusted flour on the leaves. It is actually thousands of fungal spores covering the leaf surface and blocking the plant from making food through sunlight. Left untreated, the leaves yellow and die. The plant stops producing. The fungicide industry sells sprays to treat powdery mildew for $30 to $50 a bottle. Mix 1 teaspoon of hydrogen peroxide in 1 quart of water. Spray it on the affected leaves. The oxygen release kills the fungal spores on contact. Repeat every week. The powdery mildew stops spreading. The infected leaves do not recover, but the healthy leaves stay clean. Cost per treatment, 3 cents. Root rot, this one is harder to see because it happens underground. Your plant starts wilting even though the soil is wet. The leaves turn yellow, the stems become soft near the base. By the time you see these signs, the roots have been rotting for weeks. Root rot is caused by a fungus called Pythium. It thrives in soggy soil. It destroys the root system. The plant cannot drink water or absorb nutrients. It dies. Pour a diluted hydrogen peroxide solution directly into the soil around the base of an affected plant. 1 tablespoon per gallon of water. The liquid reaches the roots. The oxygen release creates an environment that Pythium cannot survive in. It also adds oxygen to the soil around the roots. Healthy roots need oxygen. Rotting roots have been suffocated in airless, wet conditions. The hydrogen peroxide treatment does 2 things at once. Kills the fungus, oxygenates the soil. Cost per treatment, 5 cents, damping off. If you have ever started seeds indoors and watched your seedlings fall over and die at the soil line, you have seen damping off. It is a fungal infection that attacks the stems of young seedlings right at the soil surface. The stem becomes thin and weak. The seedling collapses. The whole tray can be wiped out in 2 days. Water your seedlings with a diluted hydrogen peroxide solution once a week from the day you plant. 1 teaspoon per quart of water. The oxygen in the soil prevents the damping off fungus from establishing. The seedlings survive. The cost of treating an entire seed tray is under 2 cents. These 3 diseases alone account for the majority of plant losses in home gardens and small farms every year. The Garden Center sells 3 separate products to treat them. 3 products, 3 purchases, 3 bottles. $120, 1 bottle of hydrogen peroxide treats all 3 for $1. The same bottle lasts an entire season. Now the history. Pay attention because this is where it gets uncomfortable. Before 1945, household recommendations for garden problems were common. Extension offices told gardeners to use diluted bleach for some issues, vinegar for others, and hydrogen peroxide for fungal problems. The knowledge was not secret. It was passed through farming communities and garden clubs the way practical knowledge moved before the internet existed. Then the war ended. The chemical factories that had spent 4 years producing compounds for the military had a problem. They had capacity, they had equipment, they had scientists, they had investors. They needed peacetime markets. Agricultural chemicals were the answer. Dow Chemical, DuPont, BASF, companies that had made explosives and chemical weapons now needed new products. The scientists who had worked on weapons chemistry turned to agricultural chemistry. The compounds they developed were effective. They were also proprietary. You could not make them at home from a pharmacy bottle. You had to buy them every season from the company that patented them. The pesticide industry, the herbicide industry, and the fungicide industry all grew rapidly in the late 1940s and 1950s. They were marketed as modern, scientific, better than the old home remedies that farmers had used for generations. The message was clear. Old methods were outdated. New chemistry was progress. Advertisements ran in farming magazines. Sales representatives visited farms. University agricultural programs received funding from the new chemical companies. The curriculum shifted toward chemical solutions. The extension agents who advised farmers were trained in the new system, and the new system had no interest in recommending a $1 compound that could not be sold at a premium. The university agricultural programs that trained the next generation of farmers and extension agents were funded partly by the emerging chemical companies. The curriculum shifted toward chemical solutions. The recommendations shifted. And within 1 generation, the household knowledge that hydrogen peroxide killed plant fungi was no longer being passed down. It was not banned. It was not declared dangerous. It was simply stopped being mentioned. And when something stops being mentioned, the next generation never learns it. The companies that replaced it made money every year. Bayer's crop science division generates billions in annual revenue. Their flagship fungicides treat the same diseases hydrogen peroxide treats. Their products cost $50 to $80 per liter. They require careful application. Some leave residues that persist in soil for weeks. Some are toxic to beneficial insects. Some require protective equipment during application. All of them require annual purchasing because they are consumed and must be replaced. Hydrogen peroxide requires annual purchasing too, $1 per bottle. 1 bottle per season for a home garden. Total annual spend, $1. Bayer's annual spend for the same result, $50 to $100. The economic case for hydrogen peroxide is not subtle. It does not require analysis. $1 versus $50 for the same mechanism. The only reason the $50 version exists as the default recommendation is that the $1 version cannot be sold at a markup that sustains a company. You cannot patent hydrogen peroxide. It is a simple molecule, H2O2. It exists in nature. Rain contains trace amounts of it. Your own immune system produces it to fight infection. It is older than the pharmaceutical industry by several billion years. There is nothing to own, no intellectual property to protect, no exclusive formulation. Anyone can produce it, anyone can sell it, anyone can buy it. This is why it disappeared from the recommendation lists, not because it stopped working, because it cannot be marked up. Here is exactly how to use it. Simple. No chemistry degree needed. Buy 3% hydrogen peroxide, the standard brown bottle at any pharmacy. Make sure it says 3% on the label. This is the concentration that is safe for plants. Higher concentrations can burn leaves. The standard pharmacy bottle is always 3%. For a foliar spray to treat powdery mildew and other leaf diseases, mix 1 teaspoon of hydrogen peroxide with 1 quart of clean water. Pour it into a spray bottle. Spray both sides of the affected leaves until they are wet. Apply in the morning or evening, not in direct midday sun. The liquid evaporates too fast in heat, and the treatment is less effective. Apply once a week during disease pressure. For a soil drench to treat root rot and damping off, mix 1 tablespoon of hydrogen peroxide with 1 gallon of water. Pour slowly around the base of the affected plant. Let it soak into the root zone. Repeat once a week for 3 weeks. After treatment, reduce watering to prevent conditions that encourage root rot from returning. For seedlings, water with a very diluted solution from the start, 1 teaspoon per gallon. This keeps the soil environment inhospitable to damping off fungi without stressing the young plants. For general prevention, water your garden plants with a diluted solution once every 2 weeks during the growing season, 1 tablespoon per gallon. This keeps oxygen levels in the soil high, which benefits healthy roots and suppresses fungal activity before it starts. Do not use undiluted hydrogen peroxide on plants. The concentrated form will kill plant tissue. Always dilute it first. The ratios above are safe. Follow them. One more application that most gardeners never think about: seeds. Before you plant seeds, soak them in a diluted hydrogen peroxide solution for 30 minutes, 1 teaspoon per cup of water. This kills any fungal spores or bacteria on the seed surface before they enter the soil. Seeds treated this way germinate faster and have higher germination rates because the pathogens that would have attacked them in the soil are already eliminated. Rinse the seeds in plain water after soaking. Plant as normal. Another application: cuttings. When you take a cutting from a plant to propagate it, the cut end is an open wound. Bacteria and fungi can enter through the cut. Dip the cut end in a diluted hydrogen peroxide solution for 10 seconds before planting. Let it dry for 2 minutes, then plant the cutting. The oxygen treatment seals the cut and kills any pathogens that would attack the fresh wound. The cutting survives better, roots faster, costs nothing. The brown bottle lasts for approximately 6 months after opening. Buy a new bottle at the start of each season. Cost $1. Total annual budget for treating powdery mildew, root rot, botrytis, damping off, seed treatment, cutting treatment, and general fungal prevention across your entire garden, $1. The fungicide industry generates $16 billion per year treating the same diseases. Their products have created resistant strains that require stronger and stronger applications. The resistance crisis in fungicide use is documented in peer-reviewed literature across dozens of countries. The pathogens are adapting. The required doses are increasing. The cost per season for a serious gardener using commercial fungicides has increased every decade for 50 years. Hydrogen peroxide has no resistance problem. The mechanism is physical oxidation. A pathogen cannot develop resistance to oxygen the way it develops resistance to a targeted synthetic chemical. The bubbles will still kill the fungus in 50 years exactly the way they killed bacteria in WWI hospitals. The mechanism does not change. The price does not change. $1, brown bottle, first aid aisle, every pharmacy in the country. The same liquid that surgeons used in the mud of the Somme. The same liquid that saved the lives of thousands of soldiers in conditions where nothing else was available. The same liquid that breaks down to water and oxygen and leaves nothing harmful behind. It has been waiting in the first aid aisle this entire time. It was never hidden. It was just never mentioned. And not mentioning something for 70 years is the most effective form of forgetting ever invented. Your plants get sick every season. The brown bottle costs $1. Your fungicide costs $50. Both treat the same disease. One of those facts has been public knowledge since 1914. The other has been on a shelf in your pharmacy the entire time. Connect them, subscribe, and hit the bell. The next story opens soon.